Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Over the next few weeks, I'll be sharing with you a lot of my Thanksgiving recipes. Today, I'm going to show you how to make my gluten-free bacon cranberry cornbread stuffing. It's kind of a mouthful to say, but it's really delicious. If you've never had cornbread stuffing before, it really is good. And it's really nice if you're tired of just a regular bread stuffing, which I also have a regular stuffing here on my channel. So for any kind of stuffing, you do want stale bread or at least day old. So I made this cornbread yesterday, and all I need to do now is cut it up into chunks and get it toasted to dry it out even more. And I don't know about you, but I don't ever stuff my turkey. I always prefer to have the stuffing separate in a casserole dish. But this stuffing you could stuff a turkey with, and then whatever is left you could put in a casserole dish. But I always prefer to just have it on the side. While I cut my cornbread into chunks, I'll show you how I made this yesterday. For the gluten-free cornbread, in this bowl I have 1.5 cups of yellow cornmeal. I have 1 cup of my gluten-free flour. And in this bowl, I've got 1 teaspoon of salt, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And that's it for the dry ingredients. We'll just mix these together. So set aside our dry ingredients. In this large bowl, I have 4 eggs, and this is 2 tablespoons of honey. And then I've got 1 cup of homemade buttermilk. And I'm just going to mix my eggs and buttermilk and honey together. This is just regular milk, and I've got a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in here. You could use kefir, which I've used before in place of buttermilk. You could actually use buttermilk. And then I've got 1/2 cup of butter that is melted. It is melted and cooled. You don't want to pour in really hot melted butter. You don't want to cook your eggs. Once you've got that all mixed together, we're going to dump in our dry ingredients all in one. And then stir this until it's just combined. Once you've got that all mixed together, pour this cornbread mixture into our greased 8x8 casserole dish. And then I just smooth it out. And then what I like to do is I like to go not super small. My cutting board's not very big. I like to go smallish, bite-sized pieces. And then I'll just put them here on my cookie sheet. And once it came out of the oven yesterday, all I did was just let it cool off to room temperature, and I left it out overnight uncovered, trying to dry it out a little bit. And then of course we'll toast it again in the oven. But even the ends of my cornbread, where it's the edges here, it's really soft still. It really is a soft and squishy, just a traditional basic cornbread recipe. And you don't even have to cut it. You could just tear it into chunks like this. And you want to try to get it kind of in an even layer, but if some of them are overlapping, that's all right. And then before I throw this into the oven, I'm going to get my bacon cooking as well. So in my skillet here, I do have, it's about 1.5 pounds-ish. It's just over 1 pound, not quite 1.5 pounds of bacon. And I'm going to get that frying, and I've already got it cut up into smallish pieces. I'm actually just going to put all these crumbs on here too. So this will go in the oven, and I'll periodically check on it and stir it around and make sure my cornbread is getting nice and dried out and toasted. And then I've got mostly just traditional stuffing ingredients. I've got an onion, celery, garlic, salt and pepper. I've got some sage and thyme. And then I've got some dried cranberries. And then some chicken stock. So while my bacon is cooking and my cornbread is toasting, I'm going to get all of my vegetables cut up and just put in this bowl while I'm waiting for the bacon to cook. So I went a pretty fine chop on my onion that is making me cry today. Get that in there. And then I've got about 7 stalks of celery. This is to taste. You can put in as much or as little celery as you like. One of the things I love about making stuffing is you can really put in whatever you like. If you don't have any bacon, you can use sausage, or you can leave out the meat altogether. And sometimes I do make cornbread with fresh corn or frozen corn in the batter. But I didn't put any corn in this cornbread, but you could. And then it would be a much more corny cornbread. You could also put mushrooms. You could put whatever you like. If you don't like dried cranberries, you could put raisins. I know some people put apricots, dried apricots in their stuffing. Before I cut up my garlic, let me check on my bacon. And then periodically I'll shake my cornbread a little bit. So the garlic amount in this recipe is also up to you. However you're feeling. Put in however much garlic you like. So I decided to go with 4 garlic cloves. They're pretty big. One of the other things I love about a stuffing recipe is you can actually make it pretty far ahead of time. You could make your cornbread, a week or 2 before Thanksgiving and put it in the freezer. If you're hosting Thanksgiving at your house, having recipes that you can make ahead of time is always helpful. Get rid of my garbage here. I'm going to go pretty fine mince on my garlic. If you've ever cooked a lot of bacon, you'll know when it starts to quiet down a little bit, it's starting to get crispy. And you don't have to cook your bacon with a lid on. I find it's just less splattering all over me and the kitchen. Let's see how our cornbread is coming along. It is getting toasty, but I want it a little more dried out than what it is now. Once your bacon is as done as you'd like it to be, I don't like to burn it, but I do like it to be fairly crispy, but it's okay if there's a couple of soft spots because this is going to go in the oven. I'm going to remove it to my paper towel lined plate and then pour out most of the grease into this small bowl. I always save my bacon grease. And I think that bowl is too small. Get a bigger bowl. I left enough grease here in my pan that I can fry my vegetables. So I'm going to turn the heat back up to medium. I like these little pieces of bacon to stay in the pan. They just add more flavor. Dump in my onions and my celery and some of my salt and pepper. And this is to taste. Add in as much or as little as you like. That onion's coming back around again for a second time. And this is about how I want my cornbread to be. So it is still soft, but you can see that little pieces of it are getting toasted. Once my onions and my celery look like this, I'm going to add in my garlic and let this saute for a few minutes. Get it in the pan. And once your garlic has sauteed for about a minute or 2, I'm going to pour in about half of my chicken stock. So this is about a half a cup. And then put the lid on and let this simmer for just a few minutes. Bring my bacon closer. And in the same bowl that my vegetables were in, I've got my about 3/4 of a cup of dried cranberries. We can just get those in there. And then my kind of cooled off bacon. And then I'm just going to put my cornbread in as well. So those have not absorbed all of the liquid yet. I'm going to turn the heat off and just keep the lid on and just let them steam in there. I don't want them to absorb all of the liquid, but I do want them to get a little bit softer. I don't mind a little bite to my celery and onions, but I don't want them to be raw in my stuffing. Or dressing, whatever you like to call it where you're from. I do want to get all of these crumbs in here. So much of this recipe is really what you like. If you like a really soft, damp stuffing, then you can add more chicken stock. If you like a really dry stuffing, then don't add as much. It's really whatever you like. I'm just getting my bacon, cranberries, and cornbread stirred around. So once your onions and your celery are as soft as you'd like them to be, I'm going to pour them into this bowl with my cornbread, bacon, and cranberries. I'm going to add in the rest of my salt and pepper. And then I've got 1 teaspoon of thyme and 1 teaspoon of sage. And then I'm just going to give everything a really good mix. Get all the way to the bottom. If you guys could smell this, it smells amazing. And it looks really nice and colorful. Once you've got that all mixed together, I've got a greased casserole dish here. I've just greased it with butter, but you could grease it with bacon grease for that matter. And then I still do have about a ½ cup left of my chicken stock. At this point, this is where you can add in more if you want. And it looks like, I'm just looking, it does look like my cornbread has absorbed the extra liquid from the onions and celery. I'm going to wait and decide when I put it in my pan. And this pan size, it's not exactly a 9 by 13. It holds the same amount as a 9 by 13, but it's a little bit different of a shape. And then I'm just leveling it out. I don't want a big mound in the middle. So this is your last chance to make your decision on if you want to add in the rest of your chicken stock. I'm going to pass on my extra chicken stock. This is one of those things where you can always add more later, or you can add gravy later. But if you make this too soggy, it's kind of hard to come back from. And that's just me. I prefer a stuffing that is on the dry side. So now this goes into the oven for about 30 minutes. If you feel like the top is getting too brown, you can cover it with foil. My cornbread stuffing went for about 30 minutes. You can see it's getting nice and golden brown on top. And I guess it looks like stuffing. All stuffing kind of looks the same. But I think it looks really good. And it smells really good. Now, usually you would serve this with something else. You wouldn't just eat this by itself. Or maybe you would. But usually it's with turkey or ham or maybe even chicken. Some kind of roast. Who knows? It's a delicious side dish, whatever you put it with. In this case, I will be serving this with turkey, although I don't have any turkey right now to go with it. But I am going to taste a little bit here. Make sure to get a little bit of everything in there. And I don't know about you, but for me, even though I use a lot of these seasonings throughout the year, when you use them in the fall with a side dish like this, it always reminds me of Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving dishes and all of the wonderful memories that come along with that. I'm going to get a little bit of everything in here. Celery, cranberry, bacon. You don't have to use dried cranberries in this. You could use fresh cranberries if you wanted to. It's hot. I gotta have another bite. And another bite. This is delicious. And even though it looks kind of dry, If you eat a piece of cornbread by itself, it isn't dry at all. And for me, this is exactly how I like my stuffing. I don't want it to be so dry that you have to choke it down with a glass of water or something, but it still is moist in the middle. So even though it looks pretty dry, it isn't dry. Of course, if you put gravy on this, then that would be delicious too. But I like it just like this, where you get all of the flavors. And there's something about bacon and cranberries together. When you have all of the savory flavors of the stuffing like this. And you know, some cornbread is on the sweeter side. My cornbread is not super sweet by itself. And cranberries aren't that sweet. But just the combination of the cornbread, the cranberries, the bacon, and of course the onions and celery and garlic, and my spices, it all comes together so great. If you're looking for a new stuffing recipe, try this one. Or try something like this with cornbread. It really makes a delicious stuffing. And if you want to put this in your turkey, then just follow the instructions that you would for stuffing a turkey. I've never stuffed a turkey, so I don't have any advice to give you on that. But you can make this in a turkey or outside of a turkey. Whatever you prefer. Let me know what you think if you make this recipe. Maybe you already make cornbread stuffing. I think it is a delicious side dish with turkey or with a different kind of meat. It goes so great on a Thanksgiving table or whatever holiday you'd like to serve it for. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.